It is time for our special guest, our featured guest. We heard a little bit about it earlier, but we're going to talk more about human trafficking. Please welcome from the Mesa Police Commander, and I hope I don't mess up your name because I could be arrested for this, Thomas Intrieri. Thomas, come on up.
Well done. Hi, Mark. How are you?
Good to have you here, Thomas.
Thank you.
Is it say your name properly?
Thomas Intrieri.
Okay. And do I have a proof? Can I see some ID and an insurance card, please?
Sure.
I've always wanted to say it.
I left it at home.
Okay, yeah. Well, here, if you show up in court and prove that you had it, we'll let it all go.
How about
that? I think that's the way I got it. Tell us what's going on, what you're doing, and boy, human trafficking, it's a very sobering topic, but you guys are working on it.
Yes. So what we've been working on in the Criminal Investigations Division, we have a unit known as the HEAT unit, Human Exploitation and Trafficking. And we're focusing on sex trafficking and labor trafficking in partnership with Department of Homeland Security within both Mesa and the East Valley area. We are working with our partners, our law enforcement partners, our non-government organization partners, in identifying and removing the predators that exist within our community, and there's many of them, rescuing those victims that have been prostituted, and bringing about awareness and education to the public en masse.
Tell us a little bit about your background. How did you get to where you are right now?
So I've been with Mesa for 24 and a half years, 25 in July, so it's a big mile marker for me. Originally from New York. As a young child, we would travel to the Mesa area to visit my grandmother who had moved here back in the 70s, and I fell in love with it at an early age of 7. Told my parents that someday I would move to Mesa. And after graduating college, going to work on Wall Street for a few years, and then playing pro soccer for a few years, I then made the decision that I wanted a stable income and I wanted to do something with a purpose. So I found my way out to Mesa, took the test, got hired, and here I am 25 years later, 25 years February.
Well, no, let's back up a little bit. Yeah. Tell us about the soccer thing. You're a soccer player.
Yeah, so as everybody knows, soccer is a growing sport here in North America, but worldwide it's the -- sport. I grew up, like I said, in that tri-state area where there is a tremendous influence of both Europe as well as South America, and that translates to the open fields on the weekends. So soccer was pretty popular. Much to my dad's chagrin, I chose not to follow baseball, and I just fell in love with the game because it was fast-paced. I loved to run. I was one of those kids that you could never corral, so it was perfect to put me on that big field. And just through sheer will and hard work, I just continued to work at it and play, and opportunities presented themselves, and I continued to move up in the level of competition and play Division I college and everything. So really had a lot of great experiences, and it was certainly blessed.
That's awesome. Well, I'm glad that you made it out west to Mesa. Coming up on 25 years. Is this kind of your specialty now, the trafficking?
So I'm over criminal investigations. So within the Criminal Investigations Division, I have the homicide unit, so we investigate all death-related cases. Special victims unit, so sex crimes, crimes against children, crimes against the elderly, fraud, the fraud unit, financial crimes unit, digital forensics unit. Digital forensics unit ties in with the human trafficking in that. We also have a few detectives assigned to the digital forensics unit that work on internet crimes against children, or ICAC. So coupled with that, we also have the crisis response team, which responds and aids those that are afflicted with mental illness during times of crisis. So this crisis response team, or also known as CRT, they'll respond out to calls for service. Sometimes they'll assume those calls for service from patrol so they can seek help for those when in need.
What, as we mentioned earlier in the show, what should we be on the lookout for to help you guys? Because this is a community effort.
Yeah, so for me, this has really been an education all over. Because back in the 90s, I worked in special investigations, and we would do street-level prostitution. And, we were always going after the prostituted persons. It seems like we were going after them, we were arresting them for prostitution, taking them off the street, booking them into jail, and we thought that was all good. So that was my experience to it. Over the years, as I've moved throughout the department and worked in different areas, and then I came upon, I've been in criminal investigations now for 18 months. I really took to the human trafficking angle and started to educate myself more on what's going on out there, and realizing that we were doing it all wrong back in the 90s. And we were looking at those that were being prostituted, the victims, as the problem, when in reality, the problem is those that create the demand, the buyers, and then those that facilitate what you often refer to, or we refer to, as pimps. And it's funny because Hollywood has a certain image of what these pimps are like. I could tell you it's all over the map. You would be surprised. And some of these people, they could be standing next to you in a grocery store. You wouldn't even know that they were involved in trafficking. And just to be clear for everybody, trafficking for sexual exploitation and or labor is something that is a worldwide problem. It affects over 40 million people worldwide. So when you think about that, that's pretty impactful. But what does that mean for us here? Well, I could tell you the Phoenix area is one of the top 20 places in the United States. And from everybody that I've spoken with that are involved on an international level, they say the US is one of the most heavily trafficked areas. Now, that doesn't mean smuggling, because smuggling denotes across borders. This is trafficking, and that doesn't. And what that means is people are being forced, coerced, or through fraudulent means. They're being promised, a good job. Like there's an advertisement, for example, for models looking for 17 to 19-year-old females. Attractive, high-paying model jobs, call this number. And then next thing you know, these people are offering these high-paying jobs. Girls go to this one job, next thing you know, they're starting to feel a little funny. They had something to drink, they're under the influence of something, and then they find themselves in a precarious situation 6, 7, 8 hours away from where they originally started. And that has been probably the most eye-opening, in that here in Mesa alone, we've rescued over 50 victims in the last year. 17 of those are juveniles. So what does that mean? It's not just the 13, 14, 15-year-olds. We talk about the pimps. Well, there's the Romeo pimp. The Romeo pimp is the kind of guy that, your daughter, my daughter, sons in some cases, meet somebody who's very charming, if you will, maybe out at a bar, outside the campus of a college, and they wine and dine them for a few weeks, few months. It's really what we call grooming. And then next thing you know, they find themselves in these positions that they're then being forced either through physical abuse, mental, emotional abuse to facilitate sex acts for the profit of money. So,
wow. So what are the typical victims of human trafficking, and what kind of numbers are we talking about?
Yeah. So, that's a hard question to answer. I could tell you there is no typical victim because it affects people of every socioeconomic class. More often than not, people don't realize the situation they're in until they're well in it, and feel so helpless and so out of touch. But typically, some of the signs and some of the indicators, especially early on, are with the younger generations, the younger kids. They're out of touch, maybe with family. They're not engaged. They're missing school a lot. And these are things we talk to education about as well. Children that have habitual absences from school, good students that are suddenly struggling in class, struggling with staying awake. For parents, hey, if your children have multiple cell phones, why would they need multiple cell phones? Well, they're being supplied these. If you're finding room keys for hotels, phone calls, phone numbers in the middle of the night. That's why we talk to parents about making sure you're looking at your children's media devices. Look to see if they have social media profiles and if they're provocative in any way. That's another indication. In many cases, these kids are putting up 2, 3, 4 different profiles in order to solicit clientele. So those are some of the indicators. But I think a big one is obviously when they realize that they are in a bad position, they've detracted from those that they were once close with, friends, family, confidants such as teachers, mentors, and things like that. So it's really something that takes everybody and everybody's effort to work together collaboratively to help identify and help those before they fall too deep into it.
Well, I know a lot of it's the money trap. What kind of money are we talking about in this industry? It's got to be huge.
Yes. So globally, they estimate, Department of Justice estimates $9.5 billion a year as an industry. It's the largest growing criminal industry in the world at this point. We refer to pimps or facilitators. They typically will have 4 to 6 girls, and they'll make anywhere from $150,000 to $200,000 a year on average, cash. So there's a lot of money. It's pretty lucrative, right? That in itself is a big motivating factor for a lot of these folks.
What I mentioned or asked this earlier. What can we do if we suspect something? What do we do as citizens?
So you can call the Human Trafficking Hotline. You could also contact the Mesa Police Department. We're currently in the formative process of developing an East Valley task force, human trafficking task force with our partners in Gilbert, Chandler, Tempe, Scottsdale, Department of Homeland Security, the Attorney General's office. So we have a collective group that is very motivated to work these cases, very responsive to work these cases. And the national hotline will filter calls or information to Mesa when they, through their Q&A, their question and answering of the reporting party, they'll find out where this is occurring and they will forward it to that respective agency. So we do get a lot of calls from the national hotline as well as the local hotline through Arizona.
You mentioned that the Phoenix area is one of the busiest, unfortunately. Any reason why that would be? Is it because of proximity to the border? Is it the climate that people escape the cold weather to come out, or?
It's a combination of several factors. I don't think the border has as much to do with it. I think it follows the natural progression of the weather patterns. What we'll find is many of the girls that are being advertised locally here in the winter are found up in the Northwest in the summer. And they kind of go back and forth up and down that West Coast into the Southwest. And then eventually we'll find them over on the East Coast in the Florida Basin and up and down the Carolinas.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, technology's done a lot of really great things, but it's social media and the ability to communicate with you don't always know who's on the other end of that device. So it's been
Yeah,
bad.
it is pretty bad, and it's one of those things where you look at the progression of society, and you really have to ask, how far have we come? When you realize that much of the advances are being used for evil purposes. But we have some great partners. I want to highlight Operation Underground Railroad. They donated a mobile digital forensic lab for us last year, which we use on a regular basis. I can tell you it's being used right now. I can't tell you where, but it's being used right now in an operation where we are identifying predators. We're identifying buyers, and when we take them into custody, we can then access their devices through this lab almost instantaneously, which then gives us all that more information to then try to identify and locate victims of whether it be pornography, the trafficking of children, and so forth. So,
we're a little bit ahead of schedule. If anybody's got any questions, do you mind?
No.
Any questions from audience members? If you've got a question, raise your hand. We'll get a microphone over to you, and we can. Here, we've got a question over here. Sorry, I threw that curveball at you there. Good job running it over.
What is your best advice for parents who are trying to keep our kids safe online?
stay engaged, monitor what they're doing, be that parent that you never wanted. In all reality, I have two daughters that are, one's 20, one's 18, you know, and when I wait until they have an audience, when they have their 3, 4, 5, 6 friends over at the house, and I bring them all in, and my wife just shakes her head. But I sit there and I preach to them, and you know, and I talk to them, I educate them about, hey, what my concerns are, what things they need to worry about, things they need to look out for, because they're at that age where they are starting to go out and socialize more often. You know, again, she's 20, so, you know, when I'm calling her at 11 o'clock and going, where are you? My wife's like, she's 20. But I want to make them aware, you know, Life 360 is a great app. I follow my kids around all the time. I also
What is that?
call them.
Tell us what that is.
So Life 360 is an app that basically, it allows you to create a network or circle, usually family-based, where you can track the phones that are on your plan. And when they're driving, I can tell how fast they're going. But you know, these are things that they're on Instagram, they're on Facebook, you know, and other social media sites. I too have a profile, and I follow them so that I can stay abreast of who their contacts are, who their what kind of information they're putting out there, and I can address it as it comes up. Hasn't really come up, but I do talk to them on a regular basis. And I share with them the stories, the horror stories. You would think, oh, I don't want my kids to know about it. I want them to know about it. And I've done that since they were little because I wanted them to be aware. And they've turned out, they're two great adults, you know, doing a great job, and they have a really good circle of friends. So, but I'm always going to be passing that message on because eventually there's going to be somebody, and there has been somebody who's already been contacted by a potential suitor or pimp. So we were able to address that pretty quickly. So just stay on top of it.
Question right behind you there.
Thank you. Our group, Kiwanis, the motto of our organization is to serve the children of the world. Mm-hmm. And I was interested in finding out if there's any way, any organizations or anything that we can partner with to help, you know, from a volunteer club point of view. So there, again, there's a lot of groups out there that have an interest in doing this type of work. I know Kathleen Wynn spoke about VAST earlier. We work quite a bit with the Arizona Anti-Trafficking Network, AATN, and the Hickey Family Foundation. There's a lot of silent partners that we have from the business, the private industry that
that offer us funding for equipment and things like that don't necessarily want to be highlighted, but they recognize the issues. I think if you just go out there and you look into some of these organizations that are out there, there's always somebody that's willing to bring Kiwanis in and to partner up with. So just, yeah.
I think I had another, oh, there's another hand here. Getting your steps in today.
Obviously, education and awareness is very important. The Kiwanis mentioned, how they could be involved, but what about, do you do talks to other organizations like Lions Club, Rotary, other organizations for more awareness, for the public awareness as well?
We do. Typically, my sergeant, Nick Lean, will go out and meet with the groups individually, along with his detectives. They'll work in tandem. Some of our detectives over in the digital forensics unit also do internet safety and child awareness presentations to help educate families and parents as to some things to look for and be on the lookout for.
Got another couple of questions over here.
So when you see someone who you think is a victim, what do you recommend that you do? Like if you're in the grocery store or something like that and it just doesn't look right.
Yeah. And it's kind of hard, right? Because we use that P word that everybody kind of freaks out about, profiling. How do you profile a victim? But that's the reality of it, right? Human nature is we do it all the time. Implicit bias, I guess we could call it. But if you see somebody that you recognize, maybe they look unsettled, disheveled, looks as if they're, maybe you're being insecure in terms of their movements and their eye contact, just talk to them. Ask them if they're okay. Do they need help? Do they need a safe haven? This is kind of odd, but I thought I'd bring this up. I dropped my dry cleaning off yesterday morning. Forgot to do it on Friday. So I dropped it off yesterday morning on the way to work. And the girl there says to me, do you know anything about prostitution or trafficking? I go, yeah, actually I do. She's like, well, there's this girl that lives by me, and she told me that there's this other girl, and gave me a description, location, everything, in the downtown Mesa area, that just got away from a pimp. And she's scared, and she's staying in this location. Do you think you could do something? Do you think you could reach out to her? I said, sure. Does your friend have a phone number? I could reach out to your friend to get more information. Oh, she won't talk to the cops. But she knows that I've talked about you being a police officer as a client that maybe I could tell you. So extended, right, contact, but enough of a motivating factor because these people recognize this isn't a good situation. So I took the information that I had, we kind of put it all together, contacted a few units yesterday morning when I got in, and we're in the hunt to try to locate that girl. So, I mean, it's a constant ongoing, but you have to ask, you have to reach out, you have to be willing to,
I got a quick question. If you, in that scenario, if you identify the guy that's the pimp, how hard is it to, get justice his way? I mean, you can't just accuse him of that. Do you have to prove it, put him away? What's the prospects of that?
Yeah, so it's not difficult if you can turn the victims. Once you turn the victims and they know that they're in a safe place, the information much of it is digital, the evidence is digital, the messaging via text. In many cases, and these are some of the more extreme cases, the pimps will have an indicator or a moniker, right, that they will often tattoo the girls with. So, yeah, you have to think of this as slavery, and we look at it as if we are the modern day abolitionists, because it's really it's that heinous. So, That
Wow.
once you're able to do that and kind of connect those pieces, and you get the victims to cooperate, the Attorney General is very aggressive at prosecuting these cases. And we just recently had a case that just, we had arrested a pimp. We had a victim locally, had 3 others identified. He was arrested. He was released. He was out on bond or bail. He was out on bail, and he then reached out to a couple of the victims, one of which had left and gone to the East Coast, threatened her, so witness tampering. The feds came in and said, hey, we will fly out and interview her for you guys, since, you know, the feds, they got a lot of money. But they went out, interviewed her. She agreed to assist with the investigation, and we arrested him again, booked him on additional charges, and then the charges just started to stack up because others started to come forward. So he's looking at multiple lifetimes.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, you know what they say. Yeah. You know what they say, I've heard this before, pimps aren't smart.
No, pimps ain't smart.
So, hey, there we go. Well, hey, we appreciate this. Sometimes do you work undercover?
We do.
Okay, because
I don't, but my folks do, yes.
Well, I was going to say, if you're undercover, one of the things you got to do is blend in.
Yeah.
What we can't stand is when you try and do a plain car and it's dirty. This is a long way to go for this, folks. We're going to give you our special little gift for being our featured guest today. It's from one of our favorite members, Cobblestone Auto Spa. They're everywhere. You can drive by an intersection one day.
Right.
Go back a week later, there's a Cobblestone there. So because of that, they would like to give you a $100 detail gift card.
Wow.
Don't waste that on the...
I'm gonna put it on a city vehicle.
Yeah. Put that on your personal vehicle, go on in there, and in all seriousness, we thank you for, it's all awareness. And I know personally, I didn't realize it was to the degree that it is. And I think anytime you can increase the awareness, you increase the odds that we're gonna catch the bad guys.
And if I might add, deterrence. So to impact and affect those that may seek out, the buyers, may seek out buying others for the purpose of sexual exploitation. You will see us do our media releases publicly. You'll see the pictures of everybody that's been booked, arrested and booked and charged with the sexual exploitation, whether it be minors. But deterrence is a big piece of that. And we use a multitude of devices and applications in order to get that message out.
That's awesome.
So if you call one of the ads we post and you're interested in purchasing sex, your name's gonna go into a registry. Your phone number's gonna go into a registry. And we're gonna send you a message letting you know that your name is in that registry. If you call back, a detective will contact you. So yeah.
Wow, nicely done. Well, we know you're busy, and we really appreciate you coming off and letting us all know just what we're up against. Thanks for protecting the kids. We appreciate that. And
Thank you, Mark.
Keep up the good work. And how about a big round of applause for our special guest?
Thank you. Thanks, Tracy.